The original version of this video was uploaded to Jason Verney's YouTube channel, where it and many other videos, podcasts, snippets and films can be found. That channel can be found at youtube.com/Jason Verney.
Hello and welcome to the Not So Korean podcast. This is Timothy Holm.
And I am Jason Verney.
In this podcast series, we talk to one another and sometimes with special guests about what we know about Korea.
What we don't know about Korea.
What we want to know about Korea.
And sometimes what we don't want to know about Korea.
Recording live from UK's Koreatown itself, an area in and around New Malden, yes, the largest Koreatown and Korean community in Europe. We will start this episode off, as we usually do, with a quick summary of the last few days and what we've been doing. So, Jason, what have you been up to?
Well, let's combine this, shall we, and talk about what we've been up to. Just because there was an experience, not a massive, great experience, but memorable nonetheless. We went to that Cham Dosirak.
Cham Dosirak, which means lunchbox. Yeah, Dosirak. Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's correct. It's just down the road from I live and where you live as well, not far. But we went in there. It's as Tim just said, it's known as a lunchbox, but it's the lovely owners there. They're just down from Choice Cafe, which we mentioned in the last episode, and they have these the kimbap there is amazing. It's very reasonably priced. It's they have tuna, veggie, tofu, meat. But we actually, this time we went in there because they've actually got a couple of tables.
Yeah.
And although it's only, when I say tables, it's more of a worktop, isn't it? It's, don't forget. Oh, sorry. So, they've got a couple of, it's like a worktop, but with a couple of chairs. What we did this time, they actually made something which wasn't on the menu. So I've been having the tuna kimbap because I'm kind of pescatarian at the moment, at the moment anyway. And I wanted it spicy, so they have a spicy kimbap, but they don't have a spicy tuna one. But the lady there, she, as you remember, she did one for us the way we wanted it, which.
Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly spicy tuna. It was chili tuna, right? So she put chilies inside the regular tuna kimbap.
That's right, yeah.
So that was a special recipe just for us. I don't think people normally eat that in Korea, but it turned out to be quite good.
Yeah, that was just because I wanted the spice in it. But it was very good there, very homely, I suppose you could call it. That's what I thought of it as.
Sort of like homemade food
very... the texture
very down to earth, but it's one of the best kimbaps I've had, at least in recent years.
Yeah, I'm glad you think that, because it was for me as well. Because I went there before, but it was very so that was good. I mean, one thing I did notice there on another visit was that they had this Wianbu statue, Comfort Woman statue.
Right, Comfort Woman statue.
And apparently the woman's husband brought it back from Korea. And if people don't know, the Comfort Woman issue it stems back to Japanese soldiers in the Korean War, Second World War, and the abuse and sexual slavery of Korean women. Actually, it started with Japanese women, but Korean women as young as 14, 13, and there was 200,000 of them affected, and some are still alive.
And women from other Asian countries as well. But it seems to have been more of an issue in Korea compared to some of these other
definitely.
places.
The Philippines have been affected as well, and Yeah, so the thing was, I was just a bit touched by it because I'm an activist for that. I have been, and as well as Sewol and Kangjong in Jeju, which is the Navy base. But the one thing, when we got talking about it, the one thing that came up was basically we had both had the same sort of empathy and sympathy for the women and the cause. And if for people that don't know, on every Wednesday they have a demonstration, a rally, a speech at the Comfort Woman statue outside the Japanese embassy in Seoul. And I've been there a few times. But also there was one occasion when Timothy, you were there with me, they had actually asked me to do a speech about that because I was being an activist for it, and I spoke about Sewol. There's actually a video on YouTube.
Yeah, a video that I recorded, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, you did. And that was a good. It was a good. I think I was jet lagged that day. I was just got off the plane. I was going to Jeju to do another talk and video project. But I was just. It's just something when you go to somewhere that's a restaurant, a food place near to where you live, and they also had something that I'm passionate about as well. I'm definitely going to go there again anyway because the food was pretty amazing especially for the price.
Prices are reasonable.
Yeah,
right.
There's another one around here. I think there's a few that do that, but there's one even closer to where I live, which is Home Bento, and I haven't tried that yet. What?
Yeah, bento is lunchbox in Japanese, but it's actually run by Korean people, I believe, right?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I think so. One of our friends, mutual friends, I think, said about that. But so we haven't got a lot to report this week, but we thought we would report on that because it was a substantial.
Yeah, we recommend it. Well, actually, I posted a photo on our Instagram page from that restaurant, so if you want to check that out, you can. Unfortunately, that place doesn't seem to have their own social media presence at the moment, but they're very much they're very much worth checking out.
Yeah, Kingston Road is on.
Right. Yeah.
So this week we're going to touch on first impressions from ourselves of New Malden, Koreatown, when we first moved here, or at least first visited. So we've got different experiences in the fact that I came here about, I'll elaborate on mine in a minute, but I came here just under 10 years ago probably, or around that time, and then I came back 2 years ago to live. So, and Timothy, you want to talk about your
my history with New Malden? Well, I guess it goes back to 2013, maybe. I can't remember the exact year, but I think it was either 2012 or 2013 was the first time that I visited here.
Okay.
And I came here with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and she was, Korean. I'm not going to get into my whole romantic backstory, but...
it went downhill after that.
These things happen. But anyway, she was curious about the area, and so was I, because I used to live in Korea, and of course she's Korean, so we just wanted to check it out, and we had heard... there were some good restaurants down here and that sort of thing. But actually, when we arrived here, we it took a long time to get here from where we were at the time, which was around Elephant and Castle.
Yeah, I imagine that.
Yeah, I think we took a bus. We probably had to transfer once or twice, and it took, maybe like an hour to get down here.
Yeah, it would have been better.
Yeah, we should have taken a train, but I don't know why we didn't. Yeah, but anyway, so we arrived here. I think we got off around the Fountain area.
Yes,
the roundabout.
That's quite a hub for some buses.
Yeah. So at that time, when we just saw the Seoul Plaza, is it, or Korea Foods, the small one?
Yeah, we talked about that in the last episode. Actually, that's the original one.
Yeah. So we saw that, and then we thought, is this it?
Yeah.
Because we didn't see much else around there.
Yeah.
So we didn't realize that we had to go to the high street. So we sort of went down Kingston Road, and we were sort of looking around.
Yeah.
And we didn't really see that much.
Right,
so, eventually we found one or two restaurants. And I think it was a little bit different back then. I don't know what's changed exactly since then, but...
I wonder if Genghis Khan was down Kingston Road.
I don't remember it being there, but it could have been. Yeah,
become very famous now.
Right? Yeah, very popular with Koreans apparently all over the world now.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so yeah, I think we did end up going to some Korean restaurant. I just don't remember which one it was, but essentially our first impression was this doesn't really look like a Koreatown, right? Because especially for us, we had lived in Vancouver and Victoria in Canada,
Yeah.
and there's quite a substantial population, especially in Vancouver, of Koreans or Korean immigrants, Korean Canadians. And whenever you go to like a Koreatown in North America, usually there's, it's pretty obvious that you're in a Koreatown. Like all the businesses, they have Korean signs in Korean and sometimes neon signs just like they do in Korea, right? Which you don't see so much here. And I mean, they have all kinds of businesses, not just restaurants, but hairdressers and norebangs and, all sorts of things, just like you would see in Korea. So to me, that was what a Koreatown looks like. But when I came here, it sort of looks just like England. But you have a smattering of businesses around that are Korean. And then, of course, you have businesses that aren't Korean, or they may be Indian, they may be, English or whatever. So it's a little more like mixed here, I would say. But anyway, the second time I came here, I had a better idea of where I was going, and I went to the high street, and I saw many more businesses than the first time. And so then I realized, there actually are a lot of Korean businesses here. So,
I think the high street has also changed. I'm not going to go into what my experiences were at this point, but I think the high street has changed. So it might have been pretty easy for you to kind of miss it, because for a start, the pavement was half as wide, I think, and the businesses weren't all that. They weren't kind of. It's coming a bit gentrified now, but I think back then they were still a bit sort of. It was just a high street that didn't look that. It would have looked like just one of those roads that forked off the roundabout. And you picked the Kingston Road one, which makes sense. And if you'd gone the other way to Burlington Road, you would have reached the Yumi restaurant eventually. But again, that's quite a walk before you get to it. But I just to elaborate on what you were saying about the Koreatown. To me, because we don't have any other places in England to compare Chinatown with, we only have London really. And the reason I say Chinatown is, it's just that for us it's like a tourist thing. And we don't have a Koreatown. There are Korea areas in central London, but this to us is, again, it's been labelled as Koreatown kind of incorrectly. To me, it's community. We were actually talking to someone from the KBCE the other day, weren't we, about this? That it's been labelled as Koreatown because it's the population, but it does have the biggest selection of restaurants. But it's not going to have this.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like gate or entrance or sign saying this is Koreatown or welcome to Koreatown or something like that. Yeah, it's just a road, a couple of roads, basically, you enter, and there are some Korean businesses, but there's nothing to say specifically that you're in a Koreatown. Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, as I got to know it better, I mean, I was doing some volunteer work for a film festival a couple of years ago, and I had to come down to New Malden to hand out posters for this film festival.
Yeah.
And so I got to know most of the main businesses around here. And so once you start actually counting them up, you realize, wow, there's quite a lot here. And you get to know the people, and everyone's very friendly and kind. And so, I definitely recommend a visit if you're living in London or something like that. But I don't know if I could say this is like a destination that you must visit if you're in the UK or something.
It is amazing. Yeah, but it is amazing how many people that are into Korean culture will pay, as I did a decade ago, almost pay a visit here because of the Korean art. So people that visit here who might be into, dare I say, K-pop and other, Korean dramas, they will come down here just because of the Korean flavour.
Right.
Kind of, but One thing I was just going to ask you further about that is that because you've moved here about sort of 8 months, about 8 or 9 months ago,
Yeah.
and you've this time around, I know you came here briefly a couple of years ago to do distribution and check out businesses, but what about when you came here this time around? Because you've been more immersed in it now.
Yeah, no, I'm actually living here. Yeah.
You probably, every
Yeah,
day
it's a bit of a different experience, but
it's not telling you first impression. But
yeah, well, like I said, I still feel like it's a bit of a mixed, multicultural neighborhood, but it's nice to get to know people more as you stay here. People recognize you more in restaurants and things. And the food is definitely really good here, and it's cheaper than in central London.
Yeah,
right.
It feels a bit more like Korea, though, doesn't it?
Yeah,
In some ways.
It does. Yeah, especially at nighttime, if you go walking around, pretty much the only restaurants that are open are the Korean restaurants and maybe the Indian restaurant. Right.
We were walking around the other night, and it was one of these. It was actually a few days ago. It was a sweltering night, and we were.
Yeah.
It was kind of walking around. In Sedong or somewhere in Seoul, and all these all these places that are open were Koreans.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's also, we've mentioned before, there's Italian places. There's a fish and chip shop, but because the Koreans love their they're having a meal together. You still see that here, and because these businesses are here for the Koreans and for non-Koreans. It has that sort of romance, what I call sort of a romance about it, of sort of what I remember of Seoul, even if it's just.
Yeah, sure.
And occasionally, a couple of hours later, there might be quite a few sort of people had a few too many drinks on the high street because soju has flowed, maybe, and all the stuff that goes with it, and icha and samcha maybe, or they just stayed in the same restaurant and.
And as you said in a previous episode, like the Korean community is not only in New Malden. It's it spreads to other districts around, or neighborhoods, or boroughs, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
But essentially, to me, when I think of New Malden, I think of it anchored by the train station or the railway station and the high street, and then when you come down to the south and then you turn right, or I guess it would be to the west towards Kingston, along Kingston Road.
Yes.
If you keep going down there, you get to H Mart, right?
Yeah, quite a way down there, but yes, you do. Yeah.
And so H Mart is on one end, and then if you go on the opposite end of Kingston Road, you get to Korea Foods, which is the other massive supermarket.
That's
Korean
right. Yeah,
supermarket.
it's almost like they're almost. It feels like they've almost been put apart.
As if they're
reasons.
I don't know if they're competing or they're just it just happened that way by accident. I don't know, but
that's interesting because even up that way, there's a very big Indian Sri Lankan community, and one thing there's also a few more Korean restaurants. You've got Jingoge, which is very famous, popular around here, and there's another Chicken Beers and Azit, and there's 2 or 3 others. But it's quite interesting how you think you've seen it all on the high street, and then you start walking down one of these other roads. And I guess the thing with H Mart is that it's because of where it is. It's not a million miles away from Kingston, so people that live in Kingston can go to H Mart. I'm sure that wasn't the reason, but whereas Korea Foods, which feels more spacious inside and a very different atmosphere, that's towards the giant Tesco's and the B&Q, sort of more industrial stuff.
Right,
although there's an Audi down the other way towards near Korea H Mart, isn't there? Yeah, I can see why. And
so we were saying in the previous episode, I believe Korea Foods came before H Mart. Is that right?
Yes. Well, that's not 100% definite, but that's what it feels like. I don't think H Mart. I don't even know how long H Mart has been a company in America, because it was an American company.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is because H Mart is quite well known in North America. So
yeah, I think that's
if you say H Mart, most people know what that is. But here, I suppose Korea Foods is maybe a little bit more well known.
Well, it's interesting because people still go to H Mart, but I don't know. I do.
But yeah, H Mart does run the Oseo.
Yes, so they've become
the chain
massive.
of Korean groceries / restaurants.
Yeah.
Which are all over London and possibly other areas as well. I'm not sure.
It feels a bit like CJ, the entertainment company, and their restaurants Bibigo. It feels like H Mart has become the CJ, and then Oseo, and they've become the kind of Bibigos. It's a smaller scale. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder which one came first.
Yeah, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if it's...
I think that's mostly what I have to say, but did you want to add any more to how
to your
you...
one?
No, just your own impressions.
Oh, I could. Yeah, I could. I mean, I could go on for probably hours, but I mean, my first experience and impression was probably maybe around the same time as you, definitely before 2012, because I remember coming down here trying to seek it out and see what the fuss was about, and obviously I just got into Korean culture, and maybe it was 2012. I came down here and I vaguely remember, well, first of all, when you come off the train, that's how I came down. And still, if you get off the train, when you come out the certain side of the station, you'll see Hanbar, which is a kind of a, it's not necessarily strictly sort of traditional Korean, maybe fusion or maybe modernized, but it looks fantastic. It's like a traditional Hanok style inside almost. It's very impressive from the outside, and it's probably we spoke about Norabang. You touched on Norabang just now, but in the last episode we spoke about Norabang rooms, and Hanbar is one of the few, if not one of the two, that has these large rooms, very large rooms, and it's impressive. So even if you see that, you know you're in the right place.
Right.
I do remember though, if you turn right out of the station and you go away from the high street, which is up towards Coombe Road, where it's a slightly more sort of fancy area, if you like, more wealthy area. There's the Glass House pub, but opposite that there's a whole row of venues, shops and cafes, and one or two of those were Korean. I remember going there with Philip Goman of London Korean Links, and this might have been 2012 or even 2013, but went there once or twice. And it's actually, just to fast forward, it's actually a shame because I can't remember if we mentioned this in a previous episode, one of our other three, but they've recently got rid of all those apart from Wok Express, which remains on the corner because it's a listed building apparently. But it's there were some nice places there, maybe a Korean hairdresser's, I'm not sure, I think there was. So that's a shame. So that area, and this is due to gentrification, there's about 4 different apartment blocks being built around here. One of them near the Fountain Roundabout, which used to be the Fountain Pub. Anyway, so I do remember that around that time walking up the high street, and probably because I used to like sit down either with my laptop, do some editing, writing, or just this was like 2012, just sit down and have a coffee. The place that was there, and that's a Korean coffee shop, and it is very Korean, probably the older style Korean, but it's called The Place. And I looked up the high street, and I did see, because if you look up the high street even now, you'll see Poundland, you'll see, nothing wrong with these places, but you'll see Poundland, you'll see charity shops, lots of charity shops. And I probably saw Yummy opposite, if that was even there in 2012, I'm not sure. But I saw certain aspects of Koreanness, but I didn't feel like it's Koreatown. Maybe like you, even though I hadn't been to Toronto or wherever it was you mentioned, Victoria and stuff, I hadn't been to these places, but I knew it was where there was a large Korean community. So I think the other experience around that time was because of that Hanbar, I decided to I just remembered another thing. Norabang, there was a pub in London called the Old Justice, and I think you know that's this, and it had Norabang rooms, karaoke rooms. By the way, we keep saying Norabang, but we mean karaoke, Korean karaoke. And I remember that because I did some interviews there for a film. But coming back down to New Malden, I remember, I think it was in 2012, my birthday, and I invited a few friends. We had like my birthday there, which is a sort of a pattern I started to, sort of a thing I then started to do every time I went to Korea. I had my birthday in Korea instead of Koreatown. Anyway, then some time passed, probably between 2012 and 2018, round about then. I didn't visit New Malden. Maybe once, I can't remember. 2000, maybe it's 2017, because in 2017 I had this video art in Kingston Museum, and I'm pretty sure around that time I spent one or two visits to New Malden. Can't remember too much. But then, of course, when I moved into, fast forwarded a bit more, when I moved to the Buddhist temple in 2019, and I was already visiting.
This is a Korean temple? Or
yes, it was a Korean monk, a friend of mine. She was a Korean, she still is, but she doesn't live there. Yeah, it was a Korean temple, Shisunim. And I was actually visiting her before that, coming down from northwest London, and when I did, I would not just go straight to her because it was near Norbiton. It was kind of near the Triangle, Norbiton area. If you know New Malden, you'll know where we're talking about. If you don't, apologies. And even then, when I would literally go for a coffee at the place first before getting on a bus to go and see her, or walking. And yeah, my first impressions, well, that was my kind of second and third impressions. I did feel then, maybe because I'd got to know Korea in more, so many more ways in 7 years or something, I started to feel there was more Koreanness and Koreanness here. And because I'm not someone who, I've fluctuated between eating meat and not eating meat. And of course, because I'm not necessarily coming here for the restaurants, that would be a different matter. If I was coming here solely for the restaurants back then I would be checking out each one every time I came or something. Or especially on my own, I might rather get a group of people, as is the Korean way sometimes, to get a load of you together. So maybe I wasn't at first getting to see what this Koreatown or New Malden was like, but I did eventually. And now, since moving here, since living at that temple for just under 6 months, to moving nearer to the high street, then I really see what's going on. In fact, one of the first things that happened was I got invited by a North Korean friend of mine. She doesn't live here, but she lives elsewhere in the country. And she told me about, she wasn't going to this, but she told me about this Chuseok, this North Korean Chuseok. Chuseok, yeah, I say Chuseok.
Korean Thanksgiving.
That's right.
Or Harvest Festival.
Yeah, we're coming to Harvest Festival again later, actually, which is interesting. Something you might find interesting. And I felt honoured I was told it wasn't really advertised as such outside the North Korean community, and it was this Chuseok kind of not so much a barbecue, but a kind of picnic, a massive picnic. There was sports, and it was we've been to this park, it was Beverly Park. Yeah. And there were South Koreans as well there, and it was a great mix. And it was just on the side of the park, near the tennis, what do you call it, courts, I guess. And that was one of the first things that happened, and I was kind of, wow, this is, I knew, obviously, the North Korean, Chinese Korean community was here, but to be invited to that or be told about that, I was kind of honoured. But it opened my eyes again. So I'm not to say that was a first impression. It was more like it was a something else, another lesson, But other things that happened regarding that, there's North Korea. Talking about North Korean, we have North Korea Connect or Connect North Korea, which is there's an office in New Malden for them. You've probably heard of them.
Okay. So they, what do they do exactly?
They are basically for refugees and for activists. Jian Park is one of those people. They're basically it's trying to get the word out about North Korea, trying to help North Korea, trying to sort of free them, I suppose. But they do so much more than that. They do lessons, English lessons. They do food shows. occasionally, and in fact one of those took me to one of their houses, because we were meant to have it in the Methodist church, and if you know the Methodist church, obviously you do, we've been there. Not to pray.
Yeah, not that we're Methodists or anything,
No,
but
no.
yeah, just to...
There's a Methodist to our madness. Sorry to offend any Methodists out there.
Yeah, they sometimes have part of the Korean festival is
They
held
did last
in
year,
that
didn't
church.
they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it had Halem Kim, and but you know that because we couldn't get in there once, they said, well, we're going to have to do this food. It was like a food display of their, you know, sort of food tasting, because they didn't have access to it, and they should have had access to it. We ended up going around one of their houses, and you know, had loads of food. And one more thing regarding first impressions, and I know you touched on this earlier, the Indian community, and you know about this already, but when you go up Burlington Road, which is basically, if you walk down the high street and you go, instead of going down Kingston Road, you go the opposite way, turn left to Burlington Road, then you'll eventually come down to a very Indian, Sri Lankan area, and it's just I didn't expect it. It was like, I didn't expect it, and I love India. I've been there a couple of times. So I'd like to learn more about their culture, but it's interesting. This mix, obviously, there's a lot of British people here, as you touched on earlier. But the other thing is, I actually had an experience of somewhere I was staying, and the people that I was staying with, they were actually a Korean Chinese actually, so from China, but in the Korean Yanbian sort of area, and she was with a Sri Lankan guy, and they were together. I don't know if they were married, but they were together. I mean, he spoke fluent Korean, and I thought, wow, this is for a start, it's beautiful that two different. You know, I know we obviously it's not a new thing in this country, sort of different. So interracial relationships, if you like, but I was just quite surprised, having not been here long, that they were together. I think they met because they worked in a restaurant together. And again, it was I call it a first impression, because it was something that opened my eyes, and there's a lot more in this community. And I actually thought maybe they met at the church, because there's a lot of churches here, and I thought maybe that was the case, and I'm sure that happens as well, as it does.
Sure. Yeah, people. I mean, that's how you and I met, right?
Yeah, well, church. Yeah. I was that was when I used to be a vicar, a priest. things haven't stuck to that.
Right.
But so that's pretty much.
I'm sure you have a lot of other stories, and I might have a few as well. But I think we'll wrap it up there for this week. But before we go, we did want to mention that there is the Kingston Korea Festival is coming up, starting in September.
Yeah, so the KBCE are in charge of these events. We mentioned this in the last episode. Excuse me. So 18th September, Harvest Festival, basically, and like we said earlier, Chuseok, as I mispronounced it. That's coming up 18th September, so just about 6 weeks ago. And then we have, following that, the month later, we've got, on the 23rd of October, we've got, you can say this, Tim. We've got...
Jason's favourite K-pop UK national competition.
Okay, there you go. It didn't come from my lips. And in November, so we've got something every month coming up, arranged by the KBC, the Korean British Cultural Exchange, who have been putting on loads of these things, and the woman who runs it, she's doing an amazing job. On the 20th of November is Kimjang Festival, and people might remember this from last year. So Kimjang is basically the art of making kimchi. They had a beautiful book last year, which I reviewed, but it was last week. I think it's going to be different. Sorry, last year it was mostly online, but the year before they had it along the high street, New Malden High Street. The way of the world right now, things with Harvest Fest, I think that's going to be split online and in reality,
Yeah.
what's the word?
Offline.
That's it.
Yeah.
Not off limits, offline. So
In person. Yeah.
Yeah, so we thought we'd give you that bit of news. There's 3 different events: 18th of September, Harvest Festival; 23rd of October, certain music national competition; and then 20th of November, Kimjang Festival. We do like to give you a bit of news at the end of each show.
So kimjang is just basically means like making kimchi or like
Yeah, I don't know why I call it the art of, but I think they might have heard that somewhere. But it's I think that's what it is. And talking about North Korean people that I've met, one of those what I spoke about before, she is involved with that Kimjang Festival, or she has been, and she makes the North Korean kimchi. And it's
so this year they're gonna have not only South Korean kimchi but also North Korean and possibly even Chinese Korean, I believe.
Yeah, that might reflect their book that last year then, because that's it. I mean, I think they always have a little bit of North, but maybe she's trying to elaborate.
Yeah.
So, thanks again for all the feedback on the previous shows. We really appreciate it, and we are gonna, as I said, we said this in 3 other episodes now, but we're just getting started. We're just introducing ourselves, just introducing New Malden to yourselves, to you guys.
And hopefully we can announce our first guest very soon, maybe within the next week or so. You may even have already heard of it by the time this airs, but very shortly we hope to have some interesting people to talk to on the show.
And just one more thing, as a kind of, seeing as we have the permission to use their music every show, the brilliant Kaya, Kaya, with their song New Arirang, can't get my R's out, from their album Korean Breeze. It's the same song. We play the intro and outro, so we'll leave you with that.
And 안녕히 계세요.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.